Basically, I need to be able to record this video, move on to my work, call it a day, hang some curtains downstairs. It's gonna be a crazy... I don't know why this was on the ground. Version control. I showed you the process from a super high level. I wanted to spend today and the upcoming days talking about the underlying principles, tools, and thought technologies that power all of that. The first one is version control. I want to frame what the pain is that version control solves. Creating a bunch of files. You have to create and deal with tens or hundreds or thousands of files depending on the size of your project. The one that I'm familiar with, and it seems to be the industry standard, is called Git version control, Git. Understanding version control. Git and GitHub. This is something on your computer. GitHub is the social part. What empowers your team, the people you work with. Why we need Git on your machine. Git allows us to have many different files, version 1, version 2, version 3, and reconcile which one is the one we want at any given point. So maybe we moved on from version 1, maybe version 2 we added something good, but version 3 is the one we want. Think about when you're writing an email. You're writing your first version of your email. Hey person, scribble in some body text. I like to keep it to 3 points. Sincerely, my name. Let's say you want to go back in and change this second sentence here, right here. If you're working on your own, that's typically really easy to change one line. You just change the line in the same file. But the problem with that is if you ever want to go back and reference what you had created before, you have no way to do that. Let's say you changed it from books to library. So just 2 different words, and they were interchanged with one another, but you had no history of what had happened. Here's another example. Let's say that you're writing your resume. 2 big abouts, job 1 and job 2. 2 sentences here, 2 sentences here, and you really feel like it encapsulates what you're trying to say about that job, but you spend your time refactoring it, working on the next version, and you get 2 new versions, where at some point you changed it to job A and job B, and you interrelated them. You tell a better story, and you do it in 1 sentence. It was a change that happened based on a previous assumption. You have no history of that. We don't know what happened in between these 2 versions. If you're working on a team or you're trying to modify the same text from job 1, 2 to job A and B, there's no way to have visibility into that. That's what I like to look at version control as, visibility into the steps in which it took you. And all of these things feed off of each other, and each one was a version in which you feel like you made some progress, but there's no history there. What version control allows us to do is take what changes we start off with. So let's say we start off with books, and books changes into library. Version control, powered by Git, allows us to name that history and talk about the why behind it. It's not just that we end with this version, it's that we now have a history of, oh, well, this file actually started with this line as books. And that happened 2 days ago. And it was done by me. Extra meta information. Think of meta information as information about information. It's meta. And we can look back at what created, what are all the steps it took in which to write. Think about it at a bigger scale. You can track it by sentences, you can track it by paragraphs, even photos. And it allows us to see an interactive history of who made what and what at what time. GitHub adds a social aspect of that. Let's say we have our resume. We have it on our computer, but we need some way to, I want to let a past coworker give me feedback on a certain part of it. You could use Google Docs, but you'll lose this history. You'll lose the revisions or the changes that had happened in the past. I'm bringing up a lot of these words just so you become aware of them. I believe awareness is the first major hurdle of learning something new. It allows you to retain that information and then apply it to your actual experience of working through projects or jobs. So we have this revision history of going, okay, we have resume 1A, it is now resume 2C, and there's been a bunch of revisions in between here. Revision 2, revision 3. We need some way, instead of it just being on our local or our physical machine, so local can equal physical, we want it to go up to somewhere else. A lot of times you'll hear this called remote. Think of that on the cloud. So somewhere that a lot of other people can see. Once we push it up to the cloud, so push to remote, it's now on GitHub. We use GitHub a lot of the time to add the social aspect, and this will empower other people, so in this case maybe a past coworker, to give feedback, to work on it with us, work collaboratively, even tie into quality control. These are just a few of the bullet points that empower us with GitHub. And if you look back at what we had talked about yesterday, this 100% empowers these steps, easily empower this version control for designing and prototyping. So now we have Git. So think of Git as our local machine. So our laptop sitting right here. We'll think of remote as a server. It's the weirdest server I've ever drawn. It's a farm. There's more than one server. Think of this as pushing. So we're giving the code to the server. But if now our coworker in this example I'm just running with, some changes, we're going to need to pull them down. That's the verb that Git uses in conjunction with GitHub to make this work. So this is how we sync our changes. We push the changes we have on our machine up. So this is local. And this is remote. These again are mental models to understand the problem, which is we make lots of changes, even if it's just writing an email. We make lots of changes, and typically we need other people to give us feedback on those changes, to help empower higher quality, to help empower a bigger picture thinking, a systemic thinking at every level of what we create. If you were to look at my 8-hour schedule, I probably spend at least a quarter of my time working with Git and GitHub, documenting all the changes that I create. So when I'm going between my version histories, I'm saying why. So we're attaching, why did I make this change? Maybe it's because I'm conforming to feedback given to me by a coworker, given to me by a boss, but that why is what empowers the next level of quality and allows us to deploy what we had created. So that's the beginnings of understanding version control and working on a team of people in the software industry. This allows us to have steps inside of our process to ensure the highest quality possible, that we're delivering on what we set out to create. Creating software and designing and project management is a space that mostly is inside of our heads. We need some way to have some sanity, to write things down, make sure we're following through with what we set out to do that morning or that month or that week. Git and GitHub are one of the most foundational things for a software development team to create a product. This type of thinking started a while ago. These are just tools that unlock seeing what those problems are, seeing that the problems are, being able to identify errors and continuously improve them. These tools help empower even the frontline worker like a developer. Understanding version control is something that we're going to spend a few days on. It honestly took me months to feel even a high-level understanding over it, and took me years to feel like I had a very intricate understanding over how this stuff works and that I could follow through with it and make it work.